Day of Reckoning. What a classic game. I remember when my friend told me about it for the first time. He said he had rented a new game, and you could do special moves like the Bronco Buster. I was intrigued. What was this Bronco Buster? I had to find out for myself. We spent our entire long weekend playing Day of Reckoning exclusively. While other kids were outside chasing butterflies and frolicking, we were inside, bitch slapping the rock and pummeling Triple H. I would only leave his house to satiate my primal needs like rest and nourishment, but the next day we'd wake up and do it all over again. It got to the point where his mom nearly kicked me out in fear I'd become a permanent resident of her house. I recently borrowed my friend's GameCube and some of his games. I was pleased when I saw Day of Reckoning was included in the bunch. So get your nostalgia glasses ready, and let's get elbows deep into this overlooked classic. Day of Reckoning was made by the fine people at Yuke's, a Japanese video game developer best known for their work on many games in the WWE series, including the much more widely known SmackDown vs. Raw series on the PlayStation 2. They're also responsible for the resoundingly popular Pets Dogs 2. Unfortunately, Day of Reckoning didn't see the same Raw success, spawning only one sequel, as opposed to the Pet series that's still going strong, recently releasing Pets Dogs 17. Like many of the other WWE games released around this time, Day of Reckoning was published by THQ, who at the time held the rights to the franchise. When you first boot up the game, you're greeted with blaring, edgy 2000s rock. The music choice perfectly corresponds with the overall tone of the game. It makes you want to cave in some skulls, sweat and bleed for a chance at glory, and possibly even develop a permanent concussion. The game's overall combat is easy to pick up but hard to master. There are light and heavy punches as well as light and heavy throws. Holding the left stick in any of the four directions while pressing A will execute a throw. There are also 4 more heavy throws you can perform after you get your opponent in a clinch. To get your opponent in a clinch, you have to hold down the grab button. Once you have a firm grip of their neck, you can perform a heavy throw. These are very powerful and can turn the tide of a fight, but they're also easy to counter. Strikes act similarly. Press the B button to perform a punch or kick depending on your wrestler, and if you hold the B button down, your wrestler will lash out with a heavy strike that will usually knock your opponent to the ground. All grabs and strikes can be countered, using R to counter punches and kicks and L to counter grabs. You could also counter a clinch by pressing L. Keep in mind though, your counters can be countered, and your countered counters can also be countered. Countering counters counters your opponent's ability to properly counter, all while adding tallies on the counter. It's important to use a variety of throws and strikes, so you don't become predictable and easy to counter. Once you wallop your opponent enough, your special bar fills up, and you can enter special mode. During said mode, you can perform your special move. These are spectacular and extremely satisfying to pull off. They put your victim into a vulnerable state, and sometimes even knock them out. You can win a match in a few different ways. The vanilla option is a pin. Smack your foe around enough and they won't have the strength to push you off as you gently place your body onto them. A submission is only an option for true cowards. Submission specialists don't care if they win or lose. They simply want to destroy your body in the most humiliating way possible. As they manhandle you, your arms, head, body, and legs take increasing damage until you have no choice but to tap out. Finally, you can win with a KO. These don't happen very often, but if you're hit with a few special moves in a row, there's a good chance you'll be knocked out. My one main problem with the game is how often you need to spam the A button. It's honestly pretty fucking annoying. Get slammed, spam the A button to get up. Getting an unwanted chiropractic adjustment, spam the A button to avoid losing the ability to walk. Get breathed on by someone who just downed a 4-pack of muscle milk, spam the A button to not lose your lunch. At the main menu, you have a few options to get started. Exhibition is the quick play mode for when you want to get straight into the action. There are a lot of different variations you can choose for an exhibition match. Up to 4 people can duke it out in the ring at once in a fatal 4-way. Or you could have a Royal Rumble, where the objective is to survive an onslaught of sweaty, furious men trying to throw you out of the ring. And of course you got Hardcore, where you can use weapons to knock your opponent straight into the emergency room. Or a table match, where the objective is to simply pile drive your opponent through the provided folding table to win. Now all those other modes are well and good, but by far my favorite is still Hell in a Cell. This mode is what my friends and I would normally default to when playing. In said mode, you're locked in a steel cage that surrounds the ring, and you're stuck, with a bunch of ravenous, testosterone-fueled walking heaps of muscle. Just like in hardcore, you can use weapons and dirty tactics to win. The only way out of the cage is to be the last man standing. Or, alternatively, you can break through the grates of the cage by plowing your opponent's face into them. Once you use your human battering ram to gain freedom, you're free to run around the ring, up to the stage, and even climb up the outside of the cell to the top. Up here is where the real fights took place. This was and still is only a place for true champions. Being on top is very high risk, high reward. Not only can you be chucked off the edge of the cage, but if you're slammed hard enough, you can break through the top and plummet back down to the ring. Now, there's one more game mode I haven't mentioned, mostly because I never played it as a kid. My GameCube was set up in the living room, which was a high-traffic area of my house. That's all I'm really going to say about it. The Attitude Era was a bizarre time. Now, picking from the roster of fighters and beating up your friends was fun, but admittedly, the mode that I spent the most time in had to be the Wrestler Creator. It was easy to spend hours tweaking your wrestler. Creating a well-balanced, charismatic fighter was fun and satisfying. But that's rarely what I did. Instead, I cranked the customization bars to 11 and created hideous, disfigured characters that had faces and bodies that defy the laws of physics. There really isn't a limit to how grotesque you can make your character. The only game I can really compare it to is Oblivion. Once you're finished developing your freak of nature, you can dive into the move customization section of the character creator. You can make it easy for yourself and choose predetermined move sets like grappler, brawler, or if you're a real piece of shit, a submission specialist. But this glorious game also gives you the option to customize every single possible move in your wrestler's arsenal. From your punch combo to heavy and light grabs, you can truly create a unique moveset that almost certainly will never be replicated. This really made your created character feel unique. I'm not going to describe every option available, but you can customize something as obscure as a running heavy grab when your opponent is slouched over the turnbuckle, or the style in which your character enters and exits the ring depending on whether you're walking or running. It's really quite robust. The moves themselves range from powerful and flashy to bizarre and feeble. The potency of each move varies, and it's determined on a scale of effectiveness, E being the weakest and S being the most powerful. There are also variations to each move that can exist in 4 categories. A pin, which is just as it sounds, the move will end in a pin. A KO has the potential to knock your opponent out, winning you the match. Submit attacks focus on a certain part of your opponent's body, and fully submitting someone is another way you can achieve victory. And finally, any attack that can cause bloodshed is badass, and should take priority every time when creating a fighter. There's one step left, the entrance. What's a wrestler without a flashy entrance? If you really wanted to, you could spend as much time here as you did in the character creator. Just like in the character creator, there are many layers to the customization. You can add effects on the stage or the ring, and choose between a bunch of preset camera locations so you can get a real good look at your boy, and even decide on what he does as he comes down the stage and enters the ring. Okay, I have my guy. He's all shiny and fresh and ready to go. Let's take him into an exhibition match. And let's go with John Cena as an opponent. Okay, I'm ready. Let's do this. And he kicks the shit out of me. Man, it would probably help if I could see the guy. Anyway, your boy's a wet noodle right now, and he needs to get more stats before he's ready to take on the best of the best. You get more stats by doing the career mode. You start as a new up-and-comer in the WWE. You meet with Vince McMahon, the legend himself, and he calls you a pleb, and basically tells you the only way you're going to get in is to impress him. So you're thrusted into the developmental league, and have to face a series of scrubs that you chokeslam back to the Stone Age. Depending on how well you do in each fight, you're granted sweet XP points you can allocate to various stats. I usually prefer to put them towards counter because my smooth brain sucks at countering. And charisma because, look at the guy. Once you finish mopping up the rabble of the developmental league, you're ready for the big times. You start out by doing small dark matches. These are matches that aren't filmed and only have a local audience. I guess the WWE uses them to train their wrestlers and see how they perform in front of a crowd before they go on TV. Alright, our king is raring to go. He's pissed off and ready to crack some skulls. In fact, he seems to be more than ready. Some have noticed his temperament, and most people agree he goes too far during his fights. He just gets really into it. All that to say, our boy's a danger to others and should probably be kept away from the general public, but he's almost certainly in the right occupation. After showing a few more noobs the meaning of pain, King has finally made a name for himself, and it's time to pick between SmackDown or Raw. This time I picked Raw. Your first match is against Ric Flair, and he absolutely wipes the floor with you.
How dare get your hands off me! Get your hand off my penis!
Like, holy crap, he's fucking unstoppable. After doing whatever this is, he finishes you off. No pun intended. Now, this was always interesting to me, because you're meant to lose this fight, but that doesn't necessarily mean you will. It's also possible to defeat him, but it's really hard. At this point, I really stopped paying attention to the story. There's a lot of fights in quick succession with the same people. At one point, you square up against the Basham Bros right after suffering an injury, but that's really as deep as it gets. After the Basham beatdown, Triple H signs you onto his team, and I've finally hit the big leagues. There's no possible way he'll betray me in the end. No way. Impossible. Hey, look at that. He betrayed me. Now we're in the endgame of the story mode, and the difficulty has taken a turn into unfair territory. The AI have unlocked the ability to slow down the passage of time and counter nearly every strike or grab I send their way. Fortunately for King, he's taken many blows to the head at this point, resulting in a complete inability to process profound injury. In other words, he can take a beating. For the rest of the story mode, you take on various WWE legends, such as Chris Jericho, and the Heartbreak Kid himself, Shawn Michaels. It all culminates in one final showdown against Triple H. The final fight takes place at WrestleMania. There are 15 minutes on the clock, and whoever gets more pins, KOs, and submissions in the allotted time wins. The AI fights just as dirty as you, if not more, and will repeatedly try to pin you if you take excessive damage. It's actually pretty difficult, and I had to take multiple runs at it. After tweaking some audio settings, I finally achieve victory against the antagonist of the game, and get a shiny new belt to match my crown. I honestly had a blast revisiting this game. I know there are a lot of others like it on the PS2, but I didn't own one, so I never really played them. Overall, this game has really held up. My friends and I still pop it in from time to time for a good laugh. To me, the general problem with the new WWE games is they take themselves so seriously. In my opinion, wrestling is inherently goofy, and that aspect should be embraced without dumbing down the violence and spectacle of the sport itself. Hey, thank you so much for watching my little video. I had a lot of fun making it and revisiting this classic game. I've always really liked the heavily edited review style videos, and I plan on making more that follow that basic structure. So if you liked it, show me some support. If you're feeling extra spicy, go ahead and subscribe. There will be more videos to come. Thanks again.